Thank you, President LaForge, trustees, administration, faculty, parents, most of all students, soon-to-be graduates. It's truly an honor for me to be with all of you today. I promise to do my part to keep my comments brief. One of the real lessons around public speaking is if you're particularly nervous, look out at the audience and just imagine everyone is in their underwear. Well, I have a slight role reversal on that as an early memory of my time at Delta State. When I was a freshman, I took a speech class, and one of the first speeches we were assigned was a demonstrative speech. And in that speech, we were supposed to make a point, provide an outline, and then demonstrate support for our point. My point was, you can wake up at 7:50 a.m. and still make that 8 a.m. class. I'm sure nothing that any of you haven't had experience with. The key, of course, was to lay everything out the night before. Have your clothes prepared, the toothpaste already on the toothbrush. Now, setting that up in a classroom was a little more complex than I thought, but I brought in bowls of water and laid everything out. But one of the things I realized, laying out a blanket to feign the bed as the alarm would go off, is I was going to have to stand up in front of the entire class in my tidy whities. I don't remember the grade I received on that speech, but I do remember quite a bit of humility that came out of it. I'd like to spend a minute and share with you today about success. What is it, and how do we define it? How will we define it? And certainly all of you, soon-to-be graduates, have achieved success in the classroom, completing the rigorous requirements to receive your diplomas. But today I'd like to challenge the traditional worldly view of success, a view that is often shaped by our contemporary culture and the media-driven environment. The world sees success through the lens of accomplishment or of achievement and keeps score in areas like titles or social media followers, public recognition, financial standing, and popularity. But my experiences in life, two in particular, one that occurred at age 20 right here in Cleveland, Mississippi, and one that occurred a year later, set me on a different course. In the fall of 1979, as a nervous freshman from a tiny town in northwest Ohio, Ada, Ohio, I drove my rusted-out 1968 Ford four-door sedan to Mississippi to begin what I thought was going to be my future, training and preparing for life as a golf professional. The scholarship that Delta State had made available to me, combined with the opportunity to play golf almost year-round, was going to be my stepping stone to a future golf career. But something happened along the path. It became clear to me that I wasn't actually that good at golf. In fact, out of the 12 members on the Delta State golf team, most of them were actually quite a bit better than me. And after a couple of years of having this hammered home on a daily basis on the golf course, I knew what I needed to do. I went to visit Coach Darrell Foreman at his home in the spring of 1981 and said, "Dr. Foreman, I could not be more grateful for all that you have done for me and for the opportunity that has been given me here at Delta State. But you see, I have failed. You've invested time and scholarship money in me, and I'm simply not good enough to justify that anymore. So I'm going to transfer back to a school in Ohio. You should invest that time and scholarship money in someone who is a better golfer than I am." You see, at that point, success in my life was all about accomplishing things, the world's definition of success. But to this day, I can still recall Dr. Foreman's response. He leaned forward in his easy chair, he looked me right in the eye, and he said, "Walt, I wish you would reconsider. But I know that you wouldn't be here if you were open to that. That's a bridge that you've crossed. But let me share with you openly. I knew you probably weren't a good enough golfer to be a star at Delta State from the time I recruited you. But I wasn't recruiting a golfer. I was recruiting a person that I believed in. I'd rather have one Walt Bettinger on my golf team than 10 All-Americans. You see, Walt, as you continue to grow and mature, you'll come to realize that success isn't about what you accomplish, but it is about who you help along the way. And I believe you can impact the world in a big way someday, but first, you have to learn this lesson, and someday you will. As I left Dr. Foreman's house, I was frankly in a state of shock. He knew I wasn't a good enough golfer from the beginning. He valued me as a person. He believed in me even now after I had quit on him by transferring. Were all my assumptions about what made success wrong? What did he mean when he said someday I could impact the world? Roll the clock forward 1 year now. I'm now at Ohio University. I'm wrapping up my undergraduate degree in finance. And although Dr. Foreman's words remained in my consciousness, I was still focused on the world's definition of success, of achievement, and of accomplishment. Only now it was directed at the classroom instead of the golf course. I was now competing to finish my degree in finance at Ohio U, preparing to graduate summa cum laude, and with just one final step to achieve a perfect 4.0 grade point average. After all, isn't that the very definition of success in the academic world? And it all came down to one final exam, a business strategy class, a night class, a class where my quarterly grade to that point was almost 100%. I was so confident heading into the final exam, I was going to achieve perfection. I could almost taste it. This night class meant once or twice a week for a few hours in the business college. Yes, it was the same building where the dean had signed off on my request when I arrived at Ohio University to take 36 quarter hours per quarter so that I could complete 2 academic years in one. Now, why? Again, isn't that the idea of someone striving for success? Someone striving to be better than others? Little did I know at that moment just how ready I was to be jolted into an understanding of what Dr. Foreman's words had meant a year before. I prepped for that final exam like I've never studied for an exam before, memorizing business and financial formulas, poring over the Harvard case studies that we had focused on that quarter. This was going to be easy, and I was going to show everyone just how special and successful I was about to be. The night arrived, and the professor handed out the final exam. To my surprise, it fit on a single sheet of paper. He instructed us to wait to turn it over until everyone had their copies. And finally, he said, go ahead and flip over the paper, and the other side was blank also. I looked up at him with surprise, and he said, over the last 10 weeks, I've taught you everything I possibly could about business, but the single most important lesson: what's the name of the lady who cleans this building? I sat there at that moment in stunned silence. I'd seen her a bunch of times. We'd take a break from the night class to grab a soda or a bag of chips or a candy bar from the vending machines. I'd had other night classes during that year where I'd seen her, always smiling and yet always working diligently to ensure a clean building for all of us students to learn in. I remember being numb as I handed in that blank exam paper. And although I tried to find Dottie that night, she was nowhere to be found. I failed that exam, the first and only exam in my college career that I failed, and I received the B in that class that I deserved. There would be no 4.0. You see, I didn't know Dottie's name that night. The honest truth is, I hadn't bothered to even try and know Dottie's name that night, or any night that I'd seen her working, serving others. No, the reason was that my world revolved around me, around my goals, my ambitions, my future, and up to that point, my definition of success. But Dottie made an indelible impact on me, for Dottie reinforced the lesson that Dr. Foreman at Delta State have been trying to teach me. Because real success isn't about what you accomplish. Real success, in Dr. Foreman's words, is about who you help along the way, about who you serve along the way. Success isn't your job title, how many people know who you are, how much money you have, or of course, lucky for me, how good of a golfer you are. Rather, it begins with taking the time to get to know and to thank every person you meet in life. Not just the people who can do something for you, but the everyday Dotties in each one of our lives. Success is about serving others, putting their needs ahead of yours. For many of you students, today marks not an ending but a beginning, because in many cases, it's the beginning of a career, but in a few short years, many of you are going to be in positions of authority. You see, many of you will be managers or administrators, coaches, managing directors, vice presidents, senior executives, presidents, and I'll bet even a few CEOs out there. But the title of your position won't be leader, because that title can only be earned, and it can only be awarded by the people you serve. Boards of trustees, boards of directors, even other managers, they can give you a title, but they cannot convey to you the most important title, that of a servant leader. So yes, many of you will someday be in positions of authority. I implore you that when that day comes, you remember that to be a true leader, to achieve true success, you'll use that position to serve others and not to be served. For the title of servant leader is not based on hierarchy. It's conveyed by a vote that comes from the heart. And if you embrace the concept of servant leadership, not just in your words, but in your actions, I'm confident that success, true success, will be yours. Maybe not the world's definition of success, but the type of success that truly matters. I'd like to thank again Delta State for this opportunity to be with all of you, to share with all of you, and also to convey with all of you two of the most important lessons that I learned in my life. Thank you to Dr. Darrell Foreman, and thank you to Dottie.